So thank you very much for joining us here at the Rio Conventions TV studio. Let me ask you first, you come from a huge wind company, Suzlon. What have you made of these talks from a business perspective?
For us, of course, it's extremely important to participate and to be part of it. Our founder, Rio+20, sits in the majority of the boards of almost all the committees that are related to the United Nations events around the world. Yeah, and Suzlon, since its foundation, has been participating into this, not only to show the commitment to the environment, but also to show that we can combine both green energy business with a green approach to things. So for us it's extremely important to be here because it's in our DNA to try to share to the people what we are doing. Yes, in a very big company that is also consuming goods and consuming raw materials, etc. And it's in the green business and trying to do this transition both ways. Yeah.
What interests me, I guess, about Suzlon, particularly reading Rio+20's blog, is there seems to be quite a strong social message coming out. It's a company that clearly wants to make money, like any company does, but there's also an awareness that renewable energy will be good for the planet long term. How does that sort of fit in with how you operate on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, indeed, Suzlon has this more as a cause than as a business orientation. I am very suspicious to say because this is what lured me in this company about 2 years ago. Yeah, I was in completely different brown type of business, so to say. And when I got in contact with Suzlon and I got the invitations to come in, and for almost 5 months I was going through this process, of interviews to be selected to the position, that really caught my eye. The way the green business became a cause in the company. Suzlon is a very young company, it's only 17 years old, yeah. So only 17 years ago, basically nothing. They started with very small generators that they had bought the technology of companies that were going down in Europe, and then they brought this technology to India. They started to develop that, and then they realized in less than 1 decade how the green business of wind could help, especially the society in India in that moment. Very simple examples. In India, you have these massive migrations of people from the rural areas into the cities, and the people suffer a lot, with substandard level of living. So very complicated for them. And where the wind resources are in India, and this is valid for many places in the world, including Brazil, where the wind resources are, when you take a very big project, an infrastructure project like wind farms to these places, you make a very fast transformation in places where the economy needs to grow. Yeah, because you are taking an investment to that place. So during the construction of the parks, of course, you're going to have a lot of jobs, but right after the construction of the job, what you leave behind, is a set of very good green jobs, so to say, technicians, engineers, people who take care of logistics, this type of thing. So good green jobs. I'm not talking about low-level jobs. People who will operate, maintain, and service those parks for 20 years. And the cities or the villages that are around those parks, they start to get side benefits that are amazing because food services, logistics, transportation, hotels, everything starts to grow, based on this new business that was created there. And people do not have the need to migrate, to look for jobs and abandon the areas where they lived. So right in the beginning, almost in parallel, they noted that it was not only the green business, the wind energy that they were bringing to the country. Suzlon was one of the pioneers in India, but they were at the same time and very fast, much faster than what you can do with a hydropower plant or any type of other renewable energy. You were able to help a society that was in dire need, which is especially the case of India, where today we still have more than 650 million people in the dark. You could bring the social advantages. And then this access to green energy, combined with these social benefits, was right in the beginning something that the Tanti family, the founders, they put into the minds of everybody as a culture when they started to grow Suzlon. Today we are 13,000 people, and it's amazing. It doesn't matter which of the 32 countries you go where we have a Suzlon subsidiary, yeah? Everybody knows the story I just told. Everybody understands why it had been done this way. And when you have a cause, yeah, it's much easier for you to put people around you, yeah, and to go move in the same direction instead of only talking business. Now, people believing what they are doing to leave a better world behind, so to say.
The key question will always come down to, can actually wind cope with the huge rises in demand, particularly I guess in India, but also your speciality here in Brazil. I know Brazil has many hydropower projects as well, but can wind cope? Can it keep up with huge rises in demand in the developing world?
Sure, because what's happening in the first of all, because in the emerging economies, if you look, especially India, Brazil, China, people understood that wind brings the advantages, either as a complementary power source, which is the case of Brazil. Brazil is 78%, the electrical power generation, 78% is based on hydro. Yeah. What is the best complementary power source that you can have when you have hydro base? Is wind, because a very simple reason. Yeah. In general, when it's raining, the wind is not blowing. But when the wind is blowing, it's not raining. So in a country like Brazil or in several other countries in Latin America where hydro is big, yeah, people found out that the best way for us to conserve energy for the future is only one, is to keep water in the reservoirs of the big hydropower plants. And what is the biggest and cleanest way to do this? Is to have wind complementing the hydropower. Yeah? So emerging economies, especially in Latin America, they found out about this and had studies about this very recently. Yeah? The biggest study that was done in Brazil was only done in 2009. So when this was done, and people said, gosh, this is what we need, because of course you have to have a diversified matrix, yeah, because wind does not blow all the time, yeah, but for you to avoid a drought problem that could lead to the scarcity of water and then to a problem in generation. And Brazil, for example, had 11 power failures in the last 13 years. Yeah, many of them because you could not transport energy from the north to the south or from the south to the north. By having decentralized power plants, yeah, and the whole Latin America, the wind resources are kind of concentrated in the middle of Latin America, actually the middle of Central America, mainly Mexico, Nicaragua. Then you have northeast of Brazil. That you have the southern part of Brazil, and then you have the extreme southern part of Chile and Argentina. If you imagine this map for a moment in your mind, you're going to see that the corners of the continent have very good wind resources, and all the hydropower plants are kind of in the middle. So by decentralizing these wind power plants, you do not overload the transmission lines at the same time that you conserve energy. This is just to mention one of the benefits that the emerging economies, they noted, and this explains why now Brazil, India, and China, the three together, they were last year something around 70% of all the wind investments in the world, yeah, and I believe it's going to keep growing. Unfortunately, the situation in North America and Europe plays against the continued growth in those continents, but to answer your question, in a way, it helps then to have the emerging market just waking up for the wind, because this capacity, fortunately or unfortunately, we have to be honest to ourselves, is now available to be transferred to countries like Brazil.
And in terms of the onshore and offshore debate, this is something that happens a lot where I'm from in the UK. Offshore there seems to be more wind, but it's obviously far more expensive. What are we going to see? What developments do you anticipate in wind technology over the next maybe 20 years in terms of where turbines can be, how big they would be, and the kind of technologies, what they're going to be made out of?
Yeah, I think there are many sides to this. When we talk about offshore alone, yes, Europe is developing much faster and has to be like this because you don't have enough room anymore where you would have the wind blowing. So you had to move into the ocean anyway. And I think today the majority of the discussions are not more on the availability of the offshore and how trustworthy this source is, but mainly what is the impact of having offshore in certain areas? Do we have an impact in the flow of the ocean? Do we have an impact in the reefs? And now we see a lot of new technologies being developed related to floating platforms for offshore, or to have underwater platforms but do not touch the reefs, things like this. So I think in the next 10, 20 years, when we talk about offshore, we are going to continually see a lot of development in the United States, Europe, a lot in China as well, especially because the coastal areas in China, they do not have room for power plants anymore. But more and more this concern about how to fix that wind power plant in there. Yeah? When we talk about Latin America, it's a completely different situation. We have more than enough room still. The total Latin America today at 100 meters hub height has a potential estimated in 550 gigawatts. Brazil alone, 300 gigawatts. Yeah, 300 gigawatts is basically 2.7 times what Brazil has installed today, if you combine all the sources of energy. And as of 1 month ago, we had only installed 1.6 gigawatts in Brazil, to a potential of 300 gigawatts. So I don't think offshore in Latin America is going to be something that government, investors, regulators will push in less than 10, 15 years, to be very honest, because there is no need. Yeah? When I talk to investors, and that's a good part of my day, as you can imagine, when I talk to investors and we touch the subject, especially the investors, the big banks that are looking to this in Latin America, they are basically saying, why should I take the risk of offshore now? Yeah? If we have all those other facilities related to logistics, power evacuation, they still have more than enough room. And, as I said, extreme northeast of Brazil and extreme south of Brazil are areas where agriculture is not going well. People need to find a new economic activity, and wind can fit in there perfectly for the next 10, 15 years. So I think we are going to be in Latin America 10 to 20 years behind the developments that we are going to see in Europe. And being Latin American and being Brazilian, I'm happy because then we are going to be able to use the benefits of this experience that's going to happen there.
And I guess you mentioned the investors, and many investors, particularly in this economic climate, are nervous about putting lots of money in industries which perhaps they're not sure about the future. How important is it then for governments here and for politicians all around the world, be they at national or state or regional level, to make a firm commitment for the next 10, 15 years, 20 years in terms of renewing their commitment to the green economy and renewable energy?
That's paramount. That's absolutely paramount. What we are seeing, though, is a split in efforts. Yeah, we have very big events, global level, like this one that we are all participating now. Extremely important to set targets, exchange ideas, exchange experiences. But I think we're still lacking, people to really set targets, legal binding agreements, real carbon types of markets, things like this. This is still missing. I still have hopes for what's going to happen today and tomorrow, but this is still missing. But we see these efforts, let's say in a global level, people trying to unify those discussions, but more and more in every single country, and now Brazil is no exception, you're seeing that the sub-government levels, the state governments, the provinces. Brazil does not have provinces, but I participate in panels where people presented what provinces were doing. These guys, perhaps because they have the advantage of a smaller size, a more cohesive population in regards to culture, what they want to achieve, they started at this sub-level, if I can say so, they started to create their own targets, their own policies. And in Brazil today, you already have at least 6 states out of the 25, 26 that we have in the country. You already have 6 states where the governors launched their own initiatives to lure investments and to make sure that with the investments in the green economy, I'm not talking wind alone, I'm talking renewables as such, just to talk about energy, but there are people looking to waste, there are people looking to water treatment, all this type of, let's say, more greener investments, they are creating incentives not only to bring the investments in the projects, but to bring the supply chain, yeah, to be prepared to serve these projects for the next years to come. And I think this is something that came to stay. Yeah, every single place we go now, when I travel in Brazil, when we talk to people in Latin America, this came as a reality, and I believe this is going to be very quickly, especially in Latin America, stronger than the federal or the national government push. Yeah, because as I said, these guys, they have the advantage of having smaller, more focused areas to look into. Yeah, and for us, it's very important to have this dialogue, much easier to be done at state government levels than with the others. So we are finalizing now, I think what I would call educational phase. Yeah. Wind and is very new in Brazil, less than 10, 15 years. Yep. So, and I can sense now that the politicians came to a point that they now understand. Everybody was educated about the benefits, for example, and now the reverse process started. Yeah, those politicians are starting to provoke the discussions, yeah, about the electrical matrix, about the policies, about the incentives, about really having an industrial policy, which is still missing today, yeah. And this is the only way, yeah, for us to have investments in the country, because if we don't have a clear framework, it's going to be impossible for us to continuously invest in the country, do more localization in the country, do more manufacturing in the country, and do what we, for example, in Suzlon want to do, which is research and development in the country to adapt our machines, as I spoke in our event here 2-3 days ago, to adapt our machines, our blades to the wind regimen. Yeah, so I think it's going now in this direction, which is the right direction to go.
And a final question, because you and I are both suffering from our own form of global warming, I think, under the lights here. How much responsibility does there lie, not just with Suzlon, but renewable energy companies around the world? Because it's easy to say, I work in renewable energy, we're doing good, and we're not really going to care about how we produce our products, because you use steel, you use concrete. Companies that do offshore wind have a responsibility, I guess, with the seabed, transport. There's a huge supply chain. How much responsibility is there on renewable energy companies to ensure that while they are producing renewable energy, they are not at the same time destroying parts of the environment that they are working in?
Yeah, I'll talk about Suzlon because we are very serious about this. Just 4 days ago, we participated as sponsors in the launch of the Clean Revolution with the Climate Group, along with very other big companies like Philips and others. Yeah, and 4 years ago, we decided to start mapping our carbon footprint within Suzlon. It doesn't matter that we are in the green business. Now let's look into our own home. Yeah. In less than 2 years, a decision was made and we inaugurated our campus in Pune, a city that is 200-something kilometers from India, that last year was selected by Bloomberg Rio+20 as the most sustainable set of buildings in Asia. Yeah. Last year alone, we were able to harvest, so to say, 85 million liters of rainwater to use in our facilities. We generate almost 10% of our own power in our main campus and now in some of our facilities with the microturbines and with solar. In India, we are coming to a point that we are going to close very fast almost 100% of the contracts of the energy that we buy from the grid to have green certificates, meaning energy being bought from renewable power. Yeah. All the packaging projects, just to mention another example, all the packaging that we had in Suzlon, we changed all the designs in a way that we can recycle, yeah, all the packaging for all our products in Suzlon. Last year, the GHG Institute audited Suzlon, and we were able to save 9.9 thousand tons of emissions just with this initiative. Yeah. In the main campus, also in Pune, this year we are recycling 75% of the waste, yeah, that campus generated. That was almost 9,000 tons of emissions that were avoided. So we have a set of about 10 initiatives that I would call them initiatives, but they now formed a program that's now being distributed all over the world where Suzlon has facilities. Yeah, we have 22 facilities around the world to make sure that we become carbon positive. According to GHD Institute, you have 3 levels of calculation to be carbon positive. We are already positive in level 1 and 2, and we want to become number 3 very quickly. So we can look into the eyes of the society, into the eyes of our customers, the eyes of the government, and say, we are doing it, independent of all the carbon dioxide that I am helping you avoid emitting with our products, yeah, but we are doing more than this. We are walking the talk and showing that independent of being a wind power manufacturer, yeah, we are also doing some things in our home to help save the planet.